The Genesis StarLiner was originally concepted in the year 2015 to be 85 meters long and 80 meters wide. That means she won't fit in a large size hangar because her wingspan is too wide. Since that day, we've been introduced to many other Crusader ships that look very different in design style from the Genesis. So it's pretty safe to say that once she actually enters production, there are going to be significant style changes to her exterior to make her look more like what the Crusader design style has become. And when I say significant changes, I don't mean she'll become unrecognizable from the concept art, but instead that the design lines along her hull will need to get tweaked. But it also means that the extra wide wings still need to get cut down in order to make her fit inside a large hangar. If you've seen my previous videos, you may recall that I used a StarLiner silhouette with cut down wings while leaving the actual body perfectly intact. So if I draw my floor plan to fit inside the main body, then CIG is still free to do whatever they want to do with the wings. But not to upset anyone, I've chosen the original silhouette again to draw my final version on. Yes, you heard that right. This is intended to be my final submission for the Genesis StarLiner, and that meant I had to abandon any unique and abstract thinking in the layout. So this time I've drawn more from CIG's more common approach as well as real-life airliner designs. You'll see what I mean once I show it to you. Now, my last version still had several deficiencies. The first one being that the floor plan wouldn't fit inside the original hull shape, not without making the Genesis, well, fat. And if you own a Carrack and Mercury like I do, then you know how upsetting it can be when your sleek and slender pledge purchase ends up delivered to you with double the waistline. And since the escape modules were the founding reason why my previous Genesis design got so fat, it meant that they needed to move elsewhere. Jared actually inspired me to move them to the rear and eject out the back since, well, this is now an accepted part of Star Citizen lore. Thanks, Jared. What I didn't like about this was that the escape modules now needed to be separated from each other, and any passenger arriving at the module that was already full now had to walk or run, potentially through hazards, to try and reach another escape module, which might already have ejected, leaving that passenger stranded. I solved that by making sure that every escape module also had a couple of escape pods right next to it, as a last resort to escape pending disaster. So again, I have way more capability to escape the ship than is actually required. But that's okay, since the Genesis is described as being the poster child of space passenger jetliners. And the politicians would have made sure that passenger safety is of primary importance. Not only does this apply to escape pods, but also to life support and backup power supplies, engine redundancy, and of course a well-trained crew. So my final Genesis layout will now fit inside the original concept shape, and there's no reason for the Genesis to get fat. I'm also going to repeat myself again to stress the point that the Genesis was not designed for combat. So extra hull armor and extra turrets are out of the question. What the Genesis relies on is speed, naturally, since her job is to get passengers from point A to point B as fast as possible. But that also means that she can evade danger by using her speed. It also means that the only means of shooting back at hostile ships is by having the enemy behind her, and as such the only defensive turret on the Genesis is the one that covers the rear. Another deficiency was the fact that I took a gamble on the VIP pods being able to recline their seats in a way that allowed the occupant to also sleep in them. But I can't simply assume that CIG agrees with me. So instead, this new version now gives the Genesis 8 permanent beds for the 8 VIP passengers. And you heard that right, 8 permanent beds, they're always there. While the remaining 32 passengers can rent a bed from a possible sleeping pod module, but only if you have that equipped. So what I'm proposing here is that the purchase of a VIP ticket now includes not only access to the VIP pod, but also a VIP bed, free drinks from the Mixmaster, a scrumptious meal from the galley, a private suit locker, and allocated luggage space for a 1 SU container. So it's all inclusive. Regular passengers, on the other hand, well, they only get a regular seat, and they'll have to pay separately for drinks, meals, cargo space, a bed. They'll also have to make do with an ordinary item kiosk with limited storage space, because I've decided to give the Genesis its own local inventory, just like any space station. I mean, if you really think about it, the Genesis is basically just a small space station with engines and wings attached. So now you can board the Genesis while wearing your overcoat and even a full spacesuit, and store these in the ship inventory during your trip. When you walk off the ship at the destination, all your stored items will automatically transfer from the ship inventory to the destination's local inventory. But what about guns and explosives? Well, of course we don't want passengers boarding the Genesis carrying guns and explosives, so these items would need to be dropped off at the departure point's security point. And the player would then, while waiting in the departure lounge, need to use an item kiosk to transfer them from the spaceport's local inventory to the Genesis ship inventory. So why then even try to sell a 1SU cargo grid to passengers? Well, let's assume that the personal storage space on the Genesis is only good for a code and a rifle, maybe a couple of other small trinkets. But if you want to bring more along, let's say all the loot from your adventures, well then you have to place it inside a 1SU container and rent space on the Genesis cargo grid. And hopefully it won't come as a surprise when I say that the game will prevent any passenger from retrieving a stored weapon from the ship inventory. It's stuck in there until you reach your destination. The main difference to the Genesis owner is that the local inventory moves itself as the passenger boards and leaves the ship, whereas actual containers need to be physically loaded and unloaded. The next problem I had with the previous design was the misshapen main cargo bay. The dimensions just didn't look right. The ceiling to room width ratio just fell off, and it was all because I wanted the main modules to fit inside of them as they dropped down from the ceiling from the floor above. Well, I simply moved the main modules from the main deck over to the lower deck, if you remember where the escape modules were before. The modules are still the same size, so you can expect roughly identical modules as I had before, but in order to now reach those modules I had to add a number of passenger lifts throughout the ship. These are not based on the Spirit E1, because we haven't seen that yet, so instead I had to base them on the Origin 400i crew lift. If you look at the floor of that elevator, you'll see it's only 1 SCU wide, but it feels bigger than that through a clever use of it being wider at the waistline. My new Genesis lifts, they won't be wider in the waist, but instead rely on having a window along one side to make them feel less claustrophobic. If you ask why they aren't as luxurious as the one on the 400i, it's because the 400i is an Origin ship, and Origin ships always have the best of the best. One thing I will need to stress to the CIG art team is that these elevators need to have a floor hatch to seal the decks from potentially venting, and there also needs to be a safety bar to prevent passengers from falling down or getting crushed under a descending lift. And then the last deficiency I'll talk about was the lack of escape from the upstairs bar lounge. The only way out was the main staircase. There were no airlocks or escape pods or even a redundant life support to keep people alive if they got trapped up there. Okay, so enough talking, let's get into the floor plan. And this time around we're going to start at the rear ramp. Now this ramp is based on the Mercury StarLiner, which can take an Ursa. I would like an Ursa to fit inside the cargo bay, but this door that I've depicted over here is based on the Spirit, which won't let an Ursa go through, so I would ask CIG to either make it larger or otherwise we can just leave it out. The cargo bay looks different from what I had before. I had to put the escape modules on either side of it, and then beyond that I have the air duct running through the wing. So the cargo bay can only be so wide. The good news is you can put a 32 SCU container on both the left and the right hand side. The bad news is that you'll have to fill up the remaining space with smaller containers. There is a third row, by the way, so you can put those 4 SCU containers on here as well. Moving forward from that, we go up a couple of steps. The steps here are designed in order to make the cargo bay fit that third row. You get through the door, we get to a small lobby here. You'll notice that the pathway outline has a reddish color to it, and that means it's for the crew only. Beyond these doors, you'll notice that the pathways have a green outline, and that means the public can get to it. It also means that where the pathways change color is a door which is locked and it's for crew access only. Staying in this lobby in the front though, we have a ladder that goes up to the crew and habitation area so that they can get to the cargo bay without having to encounter the passengers. On the right hand side is an engineering panel. We go up a single step over here, and that'll bring us to the gravity ball generator room with a small control panel to turn it on, off, and do whatever you want to do to it. Going back, we're gonna follow up here. Again, we have one step up, we get to the door, now we're into the public domain. Moving to the back, we have the escape module, which can seat 8 people. There's more oxygen, there's a radio in there, the whole thing has a much larger cross section, so they're easier to find. This would be the preferred way of escaping the ship. Behind there, there's just a plug that pops out before the module actually ejects. If you arrive at the escape module to find that somebody has already ejected it and now you're stuck over here and you have no way of getting back, if you're desperate enough, there's 2 individual escape pods over here. You can go up the stairs. Right here in the elbow is where you're halfway between the lower deck and the main deck. You're also inside the wing root, so the top of the ship has to be tapered down and the belly of the ship tapers up, and here you are right in the wing root itself. We have a diagonal corridor, making it easier to run to where the escape modules are. One side of the hallway is identical to the other side, so it's just a flip-flop for the developers. Here we have the aft module lobby. The 2 little mini lifts will take you up to where the seating sections are. And then we get to the actual main modules. Now the ship is only so wide. Before I had the escape module sitting over here, but since I moved the actual modules here, it means that the pathway running between them can only be 1 pathway wide. But that's okay, because in the past I used to have to bring cargo containers through here, and that's no longer the case because now I can actually have a cargo elevator in here, which also allows me to put more cargo inside the optional cargo modules. This is 80 SCU, so it stacks 2 rows tall, and it's 4 by 10 in case you're wondering, and of course you can also put one on the other side. Hopefully, if COG agrees with me, when you've pledged for the StarLiner, you get one of these modules included. If you buy one in-game, then you don't get this module already included, so pledge now. You'll also notice that the doors are now part of the ship itself, so when you take the module out, the doors are still in the hallway, and if you don't have a module equipped like you see over here, then most likely these doors are closed and you won't be able to open it. If you're wondering what we can put in here, I'll give you some examples. So there's a sleeping module for 16 beds, and if you put another sleeping module on the other side, we have 32 beds, and that takes care of all of your regular passengers. If they get sick, you can put in a medical module with both a tier 3 and a tier 2 bed. And if you want to bring soldiers on board, then you can put in an armory, again for 16 people. You have 16 suit lockers and 16 times 2 or double gun racks, as well as 3 heavy weapons. And again, of course, you can mix that with sleeping quarters or with a medical module. However, we're going to continue on as it would be in your pledge state, and here in the front we have the VIP lobby, or the front modular lobby. There's bunk beds here. There's 8 beds in total for the VIPs. The VIPs have their VIP pods just up here, and they come down here through the little mini lifts that have glass windows in them so that they don't feel as claustrophobic, and a couple of nice benches here. I'm sure COG can dress all of this up here to make it look a little bit more refined and luxurious. If we move through here, you'll see the pathways changing to red, because now we're getting into the front luggage bay. And I say luggage, even though these are regular container cargo grids, but you have 40 passengers. Each passenger can be allowed to choose to take 1 SU container with them. That of course is a source of revenue, and you can place them on here. It stacks 2 rows high, and again it's a cargo lift. Moving forward from this, it's going to look very familiar to what I had before. You have a couple of gun racks here, not meant for rifles, it's more for repair tools as well as tractor tools to move your cargo around. There's a crew lift here that's based on the Hercules Star Lifter, so that you can go outside and move the cargo in and out, maybe make repairs to the ship. If you continue forward from here, oh by the way, the junk you see on the side here is the front landing struts, and these are the V2L or vertical thrusters. The hallways wrap around the main staircase where the front nose stairs are. If the ship is landed on the surface, then this would be the preferred way to get in and out. 2 passengers can walk up side by side, and this staircase over here of course would fold down or articulate out to meet with the surface. The doors that you see over here on the side, they're based on the bathroom doors that Crusader is famous for. I like to call them the clamshell doors, and you'll see them from time to time throughout the ship. But while the passengers are walking up and down the stairs, the crew then would use this elevator over here to go outside, move cargo, and make repairs to the ship. So let's move up and see where these passengers end up when they walk up the stairs. So we're moving over. And for the most part, this is going to look very familiar again. We have the same cockpit that we had before, with a gun rack in the back over here. The pilot, co-pilot can walk around the staircase. The first thing you'll notice here is a large or size 3 battery. If you're wondering why the battery is up front here, that's because if there's any damage on the ship that interrupts the power pipeline from the back of the ship to the front, well then we have no power in the front of the ship. I still would like everything over here to work, especially these 2 computers that I have. So if the power pipeline is interfered with or interrupted, then the front of the ship still has power. 2 computers over here. Don't forget, not only do we have the in-flight entertainment system, we have a remote turret in the back. We will also have some point defense turrets. And there you go, you got 2 medium computers to look after all of that, as well as an engineering panel. The reason the engineering panel is on the right hand side is because the person to use it is most likely your co-pilot. Then if the captain says abandon ship, the last 2 people to get off the ship should be the pilot and the co-pilot. Instead of running all the way to the back of the ship where the escape modules are, they have their own individual escape pods over here to get off the ship. And then of course we see the center staircase here, which comes down from the nose where the passengers would walk on the ship if the ship was landed on the surface. And again, this is where the pathway is green. You go to one of the famous round Crusader doors, and then we get to the VIP section. Just like all airliners nowadays, first class sits up front. So we have our 8 VIP pods over here. They do not eject, so if they need to escape the ship, then they'll have to run to the escape pods or escape modules just like anybody else. In the front there's a luxurious bathroom. It has a sink, it has a suit locker, because there's also a shower in here. Opposite to that we have the VIP food galley. We have some fridges. We have a magic tagine for lasagna, hamburgers, fancy steaks, whatever you like. The orange doohickey here in the back is a mix master. If the passengers in the VIP section say they want to grab their own drink, they can, because down here at the bottom is another mix master that's open to the public. However, if you want to use it, if you're a VIP ticket holder, you get a free drink. If you're not a VIP ticket holder, you're just a regular passenger, then you'll probably have to pay for it. You'll notice in the middle over here we have suit lockers, 8 of them, 1 for each VIP pod. So if you buy a VIP ticket, then you also get your own suit locker, which has more storage, and you'll always have access to it, whereas all the other passengers in the back, they have to share a single item kiosk. Let's move back from here. We go to through 2 more of these round security doors, or fire prevention doors, and we get to the main airlock lobby. So there's a wide entry docking port on the left as well as on the right, with doors over here that follow the contour of the outside of the ship. 2 little mini lifts with glass windows on the side, and of course safety barriers in the front, because we don't want anybody to fall down or get crushed on the other floor. This is also how the VIP passengers would get down to where their VIP beds are, as well as the main modules that is on the lower floor. There's a couple of general bathrooms over here. They're just toilets, nothing else, and some storage lockers here for the crew to use. From this main lobby, where you would enter at a say a space station or something, you can go up the main staircase, which is 3 pathways wide, and that'll take you to the upper bar, lounge, and viewing area, but we'll get there later on. On either side we have a double pathway that gets to your general seating area. So here are your 32 seats. Now each one of them is made of a cluster of 4 seats that face each other. They have a window, and it's just copy and paste for the developers. All you need to do is just put a little bit of extra table or a plateau area over here that just extends outwards to keep the pathway straight. Each one of them has the food tray on the side. If you don't know what the food tray is, go watch my previous video. I've explained it in there. And we have the main food galley. Now the main food galley is big enough for 2 flight attendants to work in, but normally you would only have 1 flight attendant working in here. But if you're falling behind and you need help, you can always call in the spare crew member to come and help you out. We have 2 magic tagines fed from the gray square over here on the side. Fridges all over the place, and 1 mix master here. If you want 2 mix masters, well then just put 1 where the fridges are and then just have 1 fridge in the middle. By the way, these little doors that you see in this food galley as well as the one up the top, they're based on the old Western saloon type of swing doors. Now these don't swing in and out, they simply retract in the wall, and they're only waist high. Let's move further down from here. And in the back there's a way to get from the left to the right. We have your item bank. So all the passengers can put their coat, their backpack, whatever personal items they have in the item bank here, and when they leave the ship, as soon as the server senses that they're no longer on the ship, the items in the item bank or local inventory will be automatically transferred to the destination site. On the back here I drew in an extra washroom. Keep in mind, for 40 passengers normally, or in real life, you would only need 1 bathroom. I've got 4 bathrooms in here, so there's plenty. Continuing back from here, we have doors in order to prevent explosive decompression, that sort of thing. And we get to a set of mini lifts. One of them goes down, one of them goes up. Now, of course, people are going to say, why don't you just have 1 mini lift that can reach 3 floors? I did that so that it's a little bit easier for the developers. It's also a little bit quicker. You don't have to wait for the elevator so long if it has to come down to you from 2 floors up. So on each side you have 1 going down to where the lower deck modules are, and 1 going up to where the bar lounge is, so that the bar lounge isn't in a dead end zone where you can only get in and out through the main stairs. We'll talk about that later on here. Going back from here, it's going to look very familiar to the previous deck because you have a diagonal hallway which runs to, you've guessed it, the escape modules. This is also where the staircases come up. So if the escape module at the end of this hallway is already used up, then you can run back, go down the stairs and find the other escape module. If you go in the middle, you'll see the pathway has turned red, and this leads to the crew habitation and recreation area. There's another storage locker over here for the crew to use. And now we're going to get into a whole bunch of things. So again, we've got the diagonal hallways going around the back. You can already see the escape modules here, and there's 2 escape pods next to each escape module, just like we had downstairs. That's something that's common everywhere. Staying in the middle, here's your ladder that goes down to the ladder that was in front of the cargo bay. We go up a couple of steps. The reason we go up is because the cargo bay has 3 rows of cargo. And on one side we have habitation. Following over here in purple or indigo, violet, whatever you want to call that color, these are your suit lockers for your 4 crew. You wouldn't put EVA or combat gear in here. This is more for your pajamas as well as your uniform. And then we have gun racks in the back here, because why not? Initially I just had a basic bathroom over here, but I realized the crew probably wants to shower, so I put in a fancy bathroom here just like you have in the VIP section. So you have a suit locker in here and a sink and a mirror and a shower and everything else for the crew to use. If you go further to the back, a couple of storage shelves, and then we have bunk beds over here, so 4 crew can sleep right there. I had to put in a little mini desk because after all, the owner or captain of the ship needs to plan his route. He needs to advertise his flight and sell tickets and set prices and schedule his flight. So he needs a special kiosk to sit down and connect with airport or space station passenger routing interface, whatever you want to call it. But this is where he can post and advertise his flight and set ticket prices. On the other side of the hallway we have recreation. So here's your dining table just like you have on the Hercules. A food preparation area. If you don't like what you can get here for food, then go down to the main galley. The magic tagine can make you whatever you like. A couple of fridges here to put whatever you want in for storage. And then there's a 2-person couch with a big TV, so you can watch whatever you want to watch. But continuing further back from here, we get to engineering. A lot of this is going to look familiar to what you had before, but there are some differences. So first we get to our medium component room, which now also contains some large components. So first of all, we have life support. Each life support unit can keep, well, it's up to CIG 10, 12, maybe 15 people alive. There's 2 over here with a battery in between. The reason there's a medium battery here is so that if the power fills on the ship, then the life support will keep going, because the source of power is right in between these 2. So how are you going to interrupt that? That is repeated on the other side. And if there's a fire in this room, then both life support systems here might fail. That's why I have a 3rd one upstairs on the top deck, but we'll get to that later on here. I had to go for redundancy, folks, so that's why you see what you see. I have 2 large shield generators here. Now, the original plan was to only have 1 large shield on the Genesis StarLiner, but the public wants to feel safe when they fly. Politicians should know this. So politicians should also allow the StarLiner to have extra defenses. We're not doing this by adding hull armor, because that makes it slow and people don't want to fly a slow ship. We also don't do this by adding extra turrets on it, because then it becomes a combat ship. We do have, however, point defense turrets aiming to the back only, but a better way to keep these people safe is by having a 2nd large shield. Over here we have the radar. Now, before I had the radar in the cockpit, and I had it as a large radar. I realize now that a medium radar is probably all CIG wants to go with, and it seems to fit just fine here in the back. On the opposite end here, I've left 1 grayed out. That can be for storage, or it could just be a dummy panel that does absolutely nothing. Beyond that, I had to create something where the engineer can escape in case there's fire or he's being chased by pirates, because if you look back to where this whole section starts, this is a choke point. Everything beyond this point is a dead end. You could get trapped in here, especially if there's fire. So I needed an alternate way for the engineer to get out, and that is through a crawl tunnel. The crawl tunnel will take you back to where the escape modules are, as well as the escape pods. And just for fun, I've added in a fuel tank. Whether or not that's just for show only, or whether or not you can actually open it up and do something with it, I'll leave that up to CIG. Going through this door over here, which is there again for fire propagation, you go down the stairs. The stairs were originally put in so that the defensive turret on the floor above could have a declination of the barrels. That's no longer needed, because you notice that the remote turret is now all the way in the tail cone. However, by this room now being a little bit lower, it means that this remote turret could technically still fire forwards, not directly forwards, but up and forwards. And everything else here is pretty much the same. You have a size 3 power, size 3 battery again, 2 size 3 coolers, and your size 3 quantum jump drive. At the end, the left and the right hand side, we have a glass window, so you can see the engines actually at work for rule of cool, and there's an engineering panel in front of each one of them. Notice this is also where the actual engines come out the back of the ship. So that kind of makes sense. It's also why the escape modules are placed so far out to the side, because they're actually on the side of the engines. But now we need to go up to the center staircase and see what I've done with the upstairs. So let's move over. You come up the stairs. Now the pathway is 3 wide. I realized that for fire prevention, propagation, atmospheric decompression, I needed a door here. Unless CIG is willing to put in a new type of door, I had to go with one of these round doors, which only has 2 pathways. If you're wondering, the Spirit cargo door won't work here, because the panels will go up into the ceiling and then protrude out of the ship. So this is what I had to go with. The bar lounge is pretty much the same as I had before. You have the 2 big panoramic windows. You have 8 seats around the bar, 8 seats on couches, and more than 8 people can stand and watch out the windows on either side. There's tons of room here. You could even theoretically put a piano in here if you wanted to, but it would be a little bit tight. For the bartenders, there's 2 pathways here. 2 bartenders could work here at the same time. Normally you would only have 1 here. If he falls behind and there's a big birthday party here, well, then you have to bring up the spare crew member to become the 2nd bartender. In the back you got your fridges, you have 2 mix masters. There's no magic tagine back here. If you want a proper food or a meal prepared, then go back to your seat and they can bring it to you from the magic tagine. Here's your mini lifts. So these mini lifts go down, and the reason I had to put these in is because if anything happens with this door in the front, there's an explosive decompression fire, whatever, how are you going to get off this ship? So your mini lifts will be your alternate way down. Again, safety barriers in front. Then we go up a couple of stairs. Again, that's because of the cargo bay. And we have a couple of bathrooms for these people to use. And also some doors inwards, and this is for the bartenders. Now they have to go down a couple of steps again in order to work behind the bar here. We have our decorative feature here, whatever you want to make that. And then in the back we get to the area that's actually above the cargo bay. Now what you see here is a third set of life support units, fed by a battery. There's options you can put here. If CIG says we don't want this here, well, you can turn this into 3 more escape pods. Technically this is the hump of the ship, where the tallest point of the fuselage is. You could even put a remote turret in here, or a manned turret, sorry, with a retracted turret, because there's actually enough room in the ceiling. However, that would imply that it's a combat ship, so for now I thought redundancy for life support is better. So here we have 2 more life support units with a battery in the middle. And here's our last escape module. This is our 5th escape module, which adds up to 40 seats altogether. That means that if you have a crew of 4, then the crew would have to get off by the escape pods. And again, like all other escape modules, there's 2 individual escape pods there for people who get left behind. And that's going to do it for my final Genesis StarLiner layout. First class sits up front and cargo is down in the belly, just like a real airliner. There's redundancy for life support and power distribution. There are beds for everyone if you choose to equip the right modules. There are 2 docking ports, 4 proper stairs, as well as 7 elevators, as well as escape capacity for 52 people to safely eject from the ship. There's a defensive remote turret in the back and 2 extra point defense turrets. Did I leave anything out? Well, these designs will get posted on Spectrum and you can tell me how I did this time. Passenger gameplay isn't on the roadmap yet, but the technical blockers that keep it from happening could melt away in the next year. So who knows, by the end of 2025, we might actually hear rumors of the Genesis actually getting worked on. This was Birdicus, signing off.